When you're playing Star Citizen, it's very easy to get used to things being a certain way in the game, and that leading to you making mistakes. For instance, you see a large ship making an approach to Grim Hex, you might think, oh, that ship is probably being flown by one person. It's the only person on the ship. They're probably getting screenshots. Easy kill. They're never going to be able to get into that hangar before I shoot them down, and they're not going to shoot back at me. But what if that person was actually using that ship to get some background footage for an upcoming video, and in fact, this is a fully armed and operational reclaimer? You may fire at will, Commander.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Now, fortuitous events and, funny memes aside, we've had some fun adventures over the years with the Reclaimer. Ramming the Hammerhead to death, and that huge running battle that we had with the Reclaimer, I think about a year and a half ago, was one of them. And the Hammerhead can slap a few things down. But you might say, as a pirate ship minion, this is kind of where I get off. This is kind of where I get off the train. You're a little bit nuts to kind of own this ship as a pirate. Let me make my case. And I think at first, if you're skeptical, I don't blame you. Because the way Star Citizen is presented to us in the Stanton system is very much going to reinforce this kind of negative view, but I promise I'm going to get you there. Have you ever played Elite Dangerous? Now, of course, many of you will probably say, yeah, of course. We've all dabbled in Elite a little bit. It's like one day, when Star Citizen's done, until then I'm going to play Elite or something like that. We've all kind of gone down that road. Have you ever accepted a mission where you go, it's a system's only 10 light years away and it's paying all these millions of credits? As you're leveling up, you're like, oh yeah, that's a good mission. And then you get to the system and you realize you should have read the fine print, because the point where you're supposed to deliver the package or the reports or whatever is actually 300,000 light seconds outside or beyond where you warp into the star system. Oh God, this is going to take forever. Well, I guess it's time to warm up some chicken tendies and maybe see what's on Netflix, because we're going to be here a while. Now you might say, okay, that's an example of a completely different game, but if you ever look up the statistics and the potential statistics of Star Citizen ships, if you're swinging by Urkel today, you might want to check out the Carrick Expedition. With the most efficient quantum drive that you can put on the Carrick Expedition, you're going to get about 1 billion kilometers out of that ship. So cut that in half. That's it's 1 billion and change. So it's roughly, we'll call it 500 million, just for a neat, nice number. We'll call it 500 million kilometers there and back. Now, 500 million. Now, if you think of Microtech to ArcCorp, we'll call that an even 50, just for the sake of argument. So that ship traveling around within a star system has enough fuel to there and back again 10 times the distance from ArcCorp to Microtech. Now, there ain't a lot of ships in Star Citizen that can currently do that. In fact, even this ship, the Reclaimer, can't do that. Yet, it's listed as a deep space ship. It's specially built for deep space. Now, we think about the Reclaimer being the kind of the gold standard and the repository for all the ship bugs that CIG seems to create, and gold standard of neglect. Let's be specific here, because it doesn't really function in the game, and there's no salvage, so there's no real reason to keep it up to date. But I would say that the Carrick Expedition more accurately reflects the deep space performance characteristics of these deep space exploration ships. And I think into the future, you're probably going to see the Reclaimer get a little bit of boost in terms of range. being that it's listed as a deep space ship, I think that's a fair assumption. Recently, we've gotten access to refueling. We've also gotten access to refining. So it's easy to say that, yeah, you can push a lot of ships out to that range if you got a Starfarer and you got an Expanse when they come out. But it's going to be a fair logistical challenge to make that happen. Whereas other ships are very naturally going to be able to go out to that distance and come back on their own. And that's kind of one of the areas that I expect Star Citizen to grow. And for some people, it might be an unexpected area. Because we often hear about deep space exploration, but realistically, all these systems are connected, they're known, and we've been there the human race, the fictional human race in this game has been there many, many times. So there's really no exploration to be had unless you're talking about the fringes of a lot of these star systems. So I guess the equivalent would be way out there in the Oort cloud, just at the fringe of our star system in real life. Vast distances that we're covering to get all the way out there. Though obviously Star Citizen is still shrunken way down. It's not like the Oort cloud is 1 billion kilometers away. But you kind of get what I'm saying, right? Is that you're going to need a ship with some serious legs to get out there. Now, just because I've had some fortuitous encounters with the Reclaimer, do I think that the Reclaimer is a battle wagon that I can take out there and use as a pirate ship? Not entirely, no. In fact, I expect the Reclaimer to... PvP and PvE are two completely different things. Let's be real. But I don't expect the Reclaimer to be walking around and just kicking ass and taking names. But as a part of a larger force of similar vessels that can reach out to that distance. Let's say if you can take a ship like the Constellation. I think currently the Constellation, or the Aquila specifically, is about 440 million kilometers with the longest range quantum drive. So I would expect that the Corsair to be able to get out to that range. I don't think it's unthinkable to think that this ship, as part of a larger force of more medium-sized long-range ships, couldn't get out there and get some work done. And obviously having this ship along gives you that ability to salvage whatever you may get out there. And being able to get out there in the first place being a bit of a challenge, this might represent the areas where there are more valuable things to be looted out in the much more difficult areas for players to reach. So that is kind of one of the big reasons why I still hold on to the Reclaimer. I fully expect star systems to vary widely in size from what we've seen in Stanton. I think that for players who think that Stanton is the standard size, I think that's kind of a bit of brain pollution, just because we've been trapped in Stanton for so long and we've been dealing with these minuscule quantum distances for so long that we kind of gotten used to it and thought, this is the way that it is. But once again, we come back to the quantum drives that we currently have in Stanton. We discussed, it's 10 times the distance. The maximum range of a Carrack expedition is 10 times the distance. Return trip, right? From Microtech to ArcCorp with the slowest quantum drive. Another factor to think about there is time. The time to cover that distance. If you're talking 10 times the time, you could be talking about an hour flight. An hour of flight time to get out to some of these locations with the quantum drives that are able to get you back. That could shake off a lot of possible pursuers. And once again, you look at the Reclaimer and you say, that thing is Retaliator and Eclipse bait for sure. Yeah, and once again, entirely granted. But how long is it going to take that Retaliator, once it finds out that ship is out there, to get to that location? Is it even going to have the fuel to get back? We'll have to wait and see, but it may not be the case, So a ship like the Reclaimer rolling along with ships like the Polaris or ships Well, yeah, I mean, like any of them, the Nautilus, possibly the Hammerhead. Actually, the Hammerhead is one thing I never looked up when I was looking at the quantum drives and their maximum range, but I would assume that you can tweak the Hammerhead to get out to a very interesting range. In fact, one sec, let's pause recording and take a look. So 305 million kilometers, which is actually more than currently what the Reclaimer can do. So you can kind of once again see my argument about the ship being able to probably go a little bit further once CIG kind of makes a review of it. It's a very difficult range to get out to, and to get out to in a reasonable amount of time to possibly catch whatever you're going after. That's a bit of a tall order. If you even have the ship entirely refueled, repaired, ready, rearmed and ready to go at a moment's notice, you still might be talking about an hour's flight time before you even get to the location to engage in the mission. And that's kind of one of the elements that I kind of count on to work in this ship's favor. One of the things that will keep it safe is distance, is time. Now, of course, there could already be hostiles out there. That's 100% a possibility. But I think that as the game evolves, that those outer reaches are going to be where the truly valuable items, the truly valuable resources are, because these are the areas that are far less trodden by players in less range capable ships. And that is, that in a nutshell, that whole argument is why I look at the Reclaimer and I look at it and I say, yeah, a pirate ship. And the truth is, whenever people say, what is a good pirate ship in Star Citizen? Anything really is a good pirate ship. It just depends on what you expect it to do, what your conditions of victory are, so to speak, and how far you need that ship to reach out. But whether you're talking about the Cutlass or whether you're talking about the Reclaimer, it's not so much a question of the ship as a question of the intended targets and the realistic assessment of what you plan to do with that ship. We've been looking at the map of Stanton for a long time. I think I've probably made a fairly convincing case that not every system is going to have a map this size. In fact, some of them are probably going to be much bigger. But it's going to be very interesting to see how this develops. And I think that ships with that deep space tag on them are probably going to be a little bit more valuable in the long run than many people currently assume.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.